coming out tonight. Hi Tonya, you sneaked in there without me seeing it. Yeah. So personally I feel a bit like a bear that wants to go into hibernation for the winter, so I really appreciate you all coming out on this November evening. So we're Openhand. We're an organisation that's really here to assist people through the shift. So the shift in consciousness that's happening in Gaia and all the inhabitants of Gaia, it's in full flow. Lots of people are a bit woolly about it, letting it pass them by, and really the message is to pay attention, to focus, to put it center stream in your life, because that's really the only thing that's going on at the moment. We've just come back from India from an amazing retreat in the Himalayas. It was absolutely indescribable. The location was amazing. The connections that we had were amazing. We had connections right back to Lemurian times and connections with new to us, higher dimensional beings that were here to help us into the next paradigm, and actually direct experience of what that next new paradigm feels like. It was a privilege to be there. We learned so much. We all processed and changed hugely. We're still integrating from that. And Open's going to share a lot of what we discovered while we were there with you tonight. So it's really about shifting into the golden age and what that actually means. So thank you for being here. We do have some cards with our contact details, so if you want to keep in touch, if you want to get information from our website afterwards, please just take a card with you or leave your name for our mailing list, and you can join our newsletter. Thank you so much again, and I'd like to invite Open to present his seminar.
Thank you. In these challenging times, in these often dark times, right? Let's be clear about it. And to be talking about the golden age amidst everything that is going on. You know, what's happening in society, what's happening in the Middle East. Are we heading to a third world war? I would say we're already in it. A war on materiality, when you expand the concept, when you expand the view of it. But let's be clear, neither am I a pessimist, because to me, the golden age emerges from this war on materiality, this Kali Yuga, as the Hindus called it. And the First Nations talked about this great purification that is underway. Everything that is being orchestrated, and I use the word orchestrated for good reason, everything that is being orchestrated in society is designed to pull consciousness in the minutiae of everything that is going on. Why would we not feel compassion, grief, sadness for what is happening now, the genocide which is happening in the Middle East? Why would we not feel that? Yes, absolutely, we should feel that, what is going on. But, not but, and there is a bigger picture. And we are that God self, that macrocosm as well, having an experience in the microcosm. And if the golden age is about anything, if the shift is about anything, it is about transitioning through the microcosm, through the minutiae of daily life, and discovering, forging that God self. That's what these times of Kali Yuga, of this war on materiality, generally I would say, are about. And that's what I want to present tonight. I want to look at things as they really are. I want to look at things like where the New Age got some of its philosophy from, but also how it detached from reality and hasn't then served the shift, really, you could say, or served humanity in a way that we could tangibly work with the concepts, with the metaphysics, with the spirituality in a grounded way. I want to look at that because we had direct connections not just with some of the main energies that have already been mentioned by Tilly, but also with the likes of Blavatsky, who formed the Theosophical Society, and Bailey. Yes, we connected directly with those beings in the ether, and we understood what their purpose was, how the mysticism of the Lemurian root races was lost in doctrine, in Buddhism, for example, and needed to be reclaimed. And so a higher dimensional, let's say, plan was hatched to bring these characters to Tibetan Buddhism, to the doctrine, to the monastery there. And one of the key ones where the first Dalai Lama was, let's say, inaugurated. I don't know what they say actually in that religion, but where he was first found, the first Dalai Lama. So Blavatsky, for example, she visited the monastery there, and we'll look at what her role was. And then Bailey after that, Alice Bailey, you may have heard of. And what is the truth that's buried within that text? Superlative text, but to my mind, quite intellectual. That's not a criticism. At the time, I believe that was where humanity needed to receive that information at. But we're in a different time. We're in a time where that doctrine, those viewpoints, need to expand off the page into an energetic feeling, because the shift can only be actualized within us. The text, the doctrine, whatever it is, it needs to become a vehicle, not an end in its own, but a vehicle to something else. So I'm going to be looking at that too, and how important that is, and where we go from here. Most importantly, I would like what I share tonight be, let's say, a transmission of energy. We were up in the Himalayas, we were blessed to be there. My heart is still there. The energy was astronomical. We found incredible sacred sites, and in one of those, a mountain pool, a turquoise pool, I had a direct connection with the Golden Tara. Now, I don't have any kind of affiliation to Tibetan Buddhism. I didn't really know any significance of what the Golden Tara was, but she came as an energy on the 6th density, speaking very strongly in an activational way in the third eye. And I want to share, if I can, I want to bridge that energy here tonight. And so what I want to do is make this as energetic as we can, rather than just me intellectually pontificating. So with that in mind, let us begin with a short meditation and a relaxation. There's a lot of great energies in this room. We can certainly resonate with one another. So let's do that. Just a short connection, just a short relaxation, and see how we connect in. So just closing the eyes. Breathing through the nose and out through the mouth. And on the exhale, a nice deep release. Like a sigh. Like you can really release and let go and settle into the space. And if you're releasing any energy, any density, that's completely fine. I have this absolutely miraculous obsidian stone. It just takes any density away and takes it down through the galactic core. Let it all go. One more. Settle right down, relax, connect. So we're letting density go, and as density releases during the evening, the stone will take it away for us. But this is also about higher dimensional energies, so now as we inhale through the nose, feel first the expansion at the back of the throat. So we're resonating, connecting into the throat chakra. And the throat chakra connects us into the singularity, the presence, as all the chakras do. So right away as we pay attention there, we might feel a sense of expansion. And feeling that expansion ripple out and fill the room, connecting us all together, unconditionally working together in our collective upliftment. And then as we inhale, feeling that expansion rising up into and through the third eye, expanding through the third eye. And the sense of the golden Tara, I just put that out, I just call that, I invite that energy into the space as a resonance, as a feeling, as a sense. Coherent, authentic beingness. Just a sense of that. And then as you inhale up through the third eye now to the crown and expand through the crown on the exhale. Opening the crown. Opening the crown is crucial to regaining the mysticism of the original humans, the Lemurians. Crucial to the free flow, living this higher paradigm here and now. So opening a space for that connection. In many ways, it's about going back to the future, reclaiming those lost qualities and traits that original humans were endowed with. In many ways, we're going back to the future. So inhale up through the head, feel the expansion, the connection. But it also must be grounded, earthed, anchored here and now for us to take full advantage of it. And so as we exhale now, down through the head, through the throat, the chest, the abdomen, right to the base, and just pausing in base on the full exhale, just feeling our connection, our anchoredness to Gaia. In a few moments, just inhale up, hold, exhale down, hold, and just being that witnessing presence in the background, observing. And with the movement, as you inhale up, you might feel the degree of swaying or spinning, gentle spinning. That would be a rise in Kundalini, also the vortex of the torus. And as you exhale, feel that swaying movement coming back down. So we're activating the torus, the flower of life. Essentially, that's what we're regenerating, reactivating. It's just feeling the sense of that then. few final moments being the witnesser of that experience. What you put your attention on becomes your external reality. And so as you find this connectedness, this coherency, this divinity, that's going to ripple out, reflect out into your life. So when you open the eyes then, just remaining anchored, present, witnessing from behind the eyes. So you're in that presence still, even as you look out. I'm going to be sharing a higher dimensional perspective, but really what it is an opportunity for you to feel something and make your own interpretation. I am not telling you what I'll be sharing is the absolute truth. I'm not doing that. No one can do that, I would maintain. You can only ever share a perspective, and it's then for each to form their own opinion, their own experience. So I'll be sharing from higher dimensionals, but it's only always a perspective. I think we have to begin with the global war on materiality, because that's what's going on in the world, right? A breakdown of the old density, the old consciousness, and it's right there in our faces. So we've got to begin with that. We've got to address that. I'm going to look at the importance of realization as opposed to doctrine. And in many ways, what's embroiling the Middle East is doctrine, or it has begun that way. It has begun that way. And we saw in the Himalayas the descent from the spirituality, the mysticism that became indoctrination. So we must look at how we reclaim realization from doctrine. Religion, basically. I want to look at what is the black snake energy. This is for us, we speak of that in terms of a metaphor for satanic energy. I want to de-energize that word, because it sparks up so many connotations and images in the mind, and people react and trigger to it. It is a very tangible, real phenomenon in the field, a quantum field energy which has become wayward. And I want to look at what that is, because it's so important in the world picture right now, but also how we can work with it in our lives and transmute it. So much projection of one party against another in the world, or emotional reactivity and projection. How can we deal with that? I want to look at that and how you transmute that into what we can call the golden serpent, which is an internal rising Kundalini energy in a particular density, the sixth density. So I want to look at that because that was a big part of our Himalayan experience. And then I'd like to look at who the Golden Tara is. What is she doing? How does she interrelate with the new paradigm? What does that look like? You know, beyond some statue in some Buddhist monastery, what does that energy really do? What does it feel like? How can we work with it? So I want to look at that. And finally, what does 1111 really mean? What is it telling us? Is it a time? Is it a timeline? Is it a convergence of different cosmic cycles? What is that? What is it telling us to do? How does it relate to our navigation as souls as we transition into this next new age, whatever that is, whatever that looks like? And at the end of the day, it's an individual journey for each of us. And we must realize that within ourselves. And it isn't something to wait for, but it's something to actualize now amidst all of this density. And it can be done. And I'm not speaking about intentional manifesting. I'm talking about holding an energy that is yours, that is a higher dimensional frequency, and seeing how that wants to shape, create in the external. Because at that level, there is no intentionality. It emerges. It flows from the source. And it's then the invitation for the lower self to pick it up and go with it and actualize it. And I feel that one of the key derailing misguidances of the New Age is taking the view that reality shapes by what you are being within, and so we're going to contort what we're being within to get what we want. Let's cut to the chase. It's always based on some form of poverty consciousness, because I can't accept what I've already created. What I've created is the perfect mirror to actualize the next grandest version of me, shadow and everything. Then I can work with my shadow. But if I'm constantly intentioning something different, well, firstly, who is doing that? Only an ego. Secondly, I'm overriding what I'm already creating. Therefore, I have no chance to integrate my shadow and truly accept. So I want to look at that, because that's really essential. So I'll come on to that. I will be challenging a lot of mainstream philosophy. Good. We'll see how it goes. War on materiality. Gosh. You know, people are speculating, is there going to be a third world war? We're in it. We are in it. Take a look at everything around you that's going on since the beginning of the pandemic and what's happened since. And that it's all part of a plan. It's all part of a strategy, one thing after another, designed to pull people in, disconnect them from their God source, disconnect them from where this is really going, and then break materiality down so as to control it. If that's not what is going on in the Middle East right now, I will eat my hat. It's about power, grabbing land and resources and control. To me, is what it's about. That's how I view it. You know, where were the Israeli Defense Force that had billions invested in them? Where were they on that day? Nowhere to be seen. And yet they're constantly patrolling the border. Has some degree of orchestration in it, to me. I've seen this kind of thing before, as we all have. To me, it's clear. It's about grabbing land. It's about grabbing power. Why, though? Why? Because other people have speculated on this too, I'm sure you have. But why is there that movement now of all times? Because the shift of consciousness, the shift of energy is breaking the weave of the old construct, of the old reality we're living in. It's breaking it down. All of this can be seen as a part of that unraveling flow. So, if I was to take, let's say, I'll show you the apple first. If I was to take, let's say this apple, huge apple, by the way, isn't it? It's like a pomegranate or something. If I was to take this apple is a tremendous representation of Gaia's torus, or Gaia and her torus. So we can say there's down the core, there's a vortex, and that's the flower of life, the torus itself, and then it's got layers of separation, and then it's got unity consciousness that is weaving it together. And at some part in the apple, you can see it's got a dink, right, where there's been some damage or whatever has happened to it. All right. Now, if I was to draw this in 2D, like this, okay, then let's say Gaia is down here. Well, Gaia is moving through the galaxy and a high energetic segment of the galaxy right now. That's what we've moved into. And because we're in this high energetic segment of the galaxy, what that does, it triggers the unity consciousness and starts binding it, starts integrating it. That's why there's a widespread awakening. because the fragmented soul is coming awake in more and more people. So it's happening to people, but it's also happening to the planet. And so Gaia's torus is speeding up. And we've seen this happen very recently, an acceleration. Why? Because we experienced one of the foundational layers of the matrix, the original architects of that, the Anunnaki. We saw a healing happen between two fragmented groups, the Enlil and the Enki groups, a few months ago, and they withdrew from the intervention that has happened here, and we expected that because they withdrew there would be great turmoil. Change, transformation, yes, but also great turmoil. It's like, imagine the Matrix as this incredible Jenga game, right? Well, what's happened is you just removed two of the lower blocks from it, the foundational blocks of this Matrix Jenga game that we're stuck in, or apparently stuck in. And so the whole tower is getting wobbly. And it's happening because the energy connected into the galaxy is accelerating, and so her energy is accelerating. And so what you have is the consciousness is pulling through this dinged part. It's like extracting through it, integrating through it, accelerating through it. So what does that do to the dinged part? It brings it active. It fires up. If you activate the energy inside of you at a soul level, what it's going to trigger is your karma. And that needs to be then dealt with. Why? Because fragments of soul have gotten stuck in karma based on past life trauma. And so if you activate the soul, you pull on the fragments. And the karma comes active until it's processed out, and then the fragments integrate. Exactly the same is happening with Gaia. And so you have this acceleration, this reanimation of the flower of life, which is happening now to Gaia, because the soul contract with the intervention is complete. And because that's happening, the dinged part of the apple is coming active. As soon as that soul contract, I spoke about this here in September, as soon as that soul contract with the Anunnaki, the architects of the Matrix, was complete, I absolutely knew what you would see is a virulent uprising on the surface. Why? Because embedded at the bottom of all this is what we can call black snake energy, quantum field energy, satanic energy, where the apple is a tremendous metaphor. How? Why? Why is the Garden of Eden telling us so much, or how is it telling us so much about what is going on now? If I take this 2D diagram of the torus, of the apple, and I flip it up through 90 degrees, I get this. Okay, we can say this is Gaia in the core of the torus. We can say that. Okay. Now, the intervention has done some pretty full-on, incredible things to impact Gaia. Various megaliths around the world, for example, have slowed her torus down. The moon, for example, is artificial. It is a quarter the size of our planet, and yet 1.2% of its weight. That makes it hollow. It ought to rotate around the equator. It doesn't. It's 5 degrees offset. That's an impossibility. It ought to go around the equator. It only spins once on its orbit of the Earth. It ought to spin several times. If you look at the dimensions, the sun is 108 times its diameter from the Earth. The moon is 108 times its diameter from the Earth. That doesn't happen by chance. You don't have a perfect sphere that completely blocks out the sun at an eclipse. That doesn't happen by chance. It was put there. I know it seems off the scale. It was put there to control energy. It extracts energy from the sun through solar magnetic coupling. It then projects through the 4D morphic fields. And that controls the energetics of the planet and the energetics of humanity too. This has been set up. The moon is older than the Earth. How is that possible if it's a moon of the Earth? It wasn't. It's put there to control energy. The evidence is rife. We just ignore it. We don't want to go there. It's too difficult to deal with. What does it mean? Well, it controls the energy field. And what it does to Gaia is it sucks energy into a false, you could say a false configuration. It's pulled energy into a false configuration. And so what it's done is, if this is the vortex of the torus, so quantum physics would tell us that you've basically got two hemispheres that oscillate around each other like this. They actually describe them as two donuts, but it's best to describe it as an apple, I think. You've got these two hemispheres rotating around each other and then forming the materiality from the relativity of unity, consciousness, and separation. The separation crystallizes into the form of the apple. But if you've got a distortion, if you've got a blockage, let's say there's a blockage here in Gaia's sacral chakra, let's say there is, then what happens is you get energy getting stuck out here in the materiality. You get energy stuck. So what we can say is, this energy began as an elemental of Gaia, an elemental energy, but got so invested in the materiality that it created a false synthetic reality. And that, belying it, is the black snake energy. And that, to me, is the metaphor of the Garden of Eden. So we, humanity, we bit and we tasted of the apple, and we got invested in the materiality, just as Gaia has been as well, through this distorting intervention. And so you have this quantum field energy at the core of the vortex, which has gotten wayward, trapped on the surface of reality, and is resisting transformation and change. And that's why you see all of this hostility between people, because what this black snake energy does, this satanic energy, it creates the us and them polarity. It causes judgment, duality, projection. And that judgment, duality, and projection releases energy. It releases energy across the gap, and it extracts that energy for its own use. This is what we can say are satanic entities or energies. They invest in the Maya. This has been spoken of for aeons in some of the oldest texts, how that energy or various groups worshipped the Maya and satanic energies thereof. Because what they wanted to do was to take ownership or take power of the physical. So what this has caused is a kind of wobbling effect of Gaia in a distorted, downgraded reality. That's what's happened, I put to you. And therefore you have this dinged aspect of the old construct. And one of the things we experience when we've connected into Gaia is her reticence to re-establish, to come back to the natural flow and spin. Why? Because if she does that, it's going to break this reality down. We are living in that reality. We are living in that matrix. If she regenerates herself, and she is going to, that's going to break down. And as it breaks down, because the energy is being withdrawn, then those who can somehow perceive and feel it, feel threatened by it. That's what you have now. That's what's going on in the Middle East. People feel threatened by it. People feel threatened in the financial sector when people introduce cryptocurrency that causes peer-to-peer direct exchange. Well, the financial system loathes that. Why? Because you're cutting out the middleman, the banksters. So they feel threatened. So then they have to squash it, choke it off, create their own central bank digital currencies. So the the shadow feels threatened. But this is a good thing. It tells us what? It tells us, when we look at it, that the energy is extracting from the old construct. That's what it tells us. But it's not going to feel comfortable. Why? Because we are plugged into it to varying degrees. To varying degrees, it looks, feels like we're dependent upon it. I'm going to come later on to explain why I don't believe we are dependent on it. But since the shadow owns all the resources right now, then it compels us to engage with it in a particular way. It compels us to be, if you like, in service to it to some degree. That's what they would have us believe. That's what we'd try to inculcate and condition with. And that's what they're trying to do. To bind people in, to keep feeding that old construct. But there is a new way of creating as we emerge from that. But to be clear, you cannot just simply extract from it. You can try, but if you go out of body, as a lot of people do, they just go into a bubble in the fourth density, all that you've got is all the fragmentation of soul still stuck in the density. So I'm up here in this kind of bubble of love and light. Meanwhile, down here, I haven't integrated, I haven't processed, I haven't gained those lost nuggets of soul gold that's still buried at the base of the stream. I've got to get into those. And I've got to work to understand what my investment, my identification with materiality is. What attaches me? What am I afraid of? What outcome am I trying to get? Or what outcome am I afraid will happen? Because it's in those moments I am defining myself either as the God self or the small self still plugged into the materiality. That's when I define myself. It's in those moments. It's not when I go off and have a beautiful trip or do some meditation or spiritual practice. It's in the nitty-gritty when someone's throwing the kitchen sink at you and you're in frustration, you're in fear, and you don't know where the rent's coming from or how you're going to pay your bills. It's then that you determine and decide who you are. It is said, it's harder for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. What does it mean? It's a brilliant quote. What does it mean? I have to pass through the eye of the needle in order to access heaven. Meaning, I have to embrace where I invest, where I trigger, where I identify, where I get small. I have to confront that. And in confrontation of it, if I turn into it consciously, I will explode the myth of the materiality, of the Maya. I explode the myth of what it can apparently do to me. Because it's all illusionary, what it can do. Yet, because I believe in what it can do, if I believe, I'm contorted by it. Because I'm afraid of the outcome if I don't go with the obliged or expected pathway. What I'm saying is, we have to go through the eye of the needle. We have to pass through that challenge, that density, so that we can transcend it and emerge out. This is a big part of the open hand work. And what I'd like to do now is to guide a short meditation as a demonstration of how we can deal with this kind of density in our lives. So I ask you just to sit back, relax, and breathe. And my aim is to help demonstrate in your own personal life a key situation that we can transcend and work with. So let you close your eyes and bring your attention to the breath. Inhale through the nose. Exhale through the mouth. Now as you exhale, close the mouth, tongue in the top of the mouth, and so you exhale through the nose as well. So you're inhaling, exhaling through the nose, but from the back of the mouth. And as we're breathing, I'd like you to visualize, imagine a situation in your life right now which is triggering for you. Let's say it's making you feel low or depressed, frustrated, worried in some way. I'd like you to imagine a situation and to see the imagery of it. See the imagery in as much detail as you can. And who's involved? Breathe, observe, visualize. And as you're visualizing, I want you to feel where the impact is internally. Now I can feel in the group quite a few things triggering. So firstly, the abdomen around the sacrum, quite a lot of tightness. Tightness around the head and the throat. Inhale up, exhale down, witnessing. Now, as uncomfortable as this may start to feel, these are the triggering points we need to get to. This is where the soul is identifying and fragmenting. So observe it, feel it, notice it. And now I'd like you to work to do something, which is to completely accept it without the idea of needing to change it. Just completely accept it. Here it is. So be it. And as you accept it, just know yourself as that presence in the background, observing the experience. And so, as you do this, you may realize you are not the experience. You are not the experience itself. You are that eternal presence that exists in and through all things, through eternity, that cannot be violated, that cannot be damaged, that continues on. You are that. And as that, you don't actually even need to change the circumstances or the situation. Be present with it. Already you may feel a letting go. But I want you to ask yourself a question now. What were you invested in that situation? In other words, what were you attached to? How the other was being, or how you think they should be? How you might want them to be? Or how you might want the situation to go? Or how you're afraid it could go? Ask yourself, what have you been attached to? Now that attachment creates baggage. Baggage that we unconsciously carry around. Baggage that limits us, that limits authentic expression. And because it limits authentic expression, we don't create the harmonious realities we could. Instead, we live a lesser reality. Maybe we become too accepting in a relationship because we're afraid of being on our own. For example, the one in you doesn't fear to be alone. The one in you knows it will create again and again and again when in alignment. So I ask you the question, is it worth carrying the baggage around? Is it worth contorting yourself for that apparent outcome that actually you don't need? And can you now set the baggage down and literally see yourself doing it? Setting it down. Why carry it any longer? And already I can feel the room getting lighter. So certainly people are setting baggage down. And as you set the baggage down, then feel the sense of integration and rejuvenation and authentic being. What that feels like. What that feels like. Feel the reanimation, the rejuvenation of your authentic being. As I play the music, just let the music give a feeling sense of that reanimation. Feel the emergence. what it feels internally now. Just a brief example then of how we can deal with some of those deeply challenging situations in our lives in a very transformative way. And that if we have the orientation and commitment to change, and we undertake that kind of transmutation on a daily basis, it's going to make a massive difference to our shift, to our journey, and how we then ultimately come to live. Just a very straightforward example. This is happening to Gaia right now. Mm-hmm. And one of the experiences we had in the Himalayas was that Kali came to us. You may have heard of Kali, you may have heard of the Kali Yuga that Hindus speak of. And often I've heard that spoken in terms of a doctrine that Kali Yuga is a given period of time, several hundred years, or several 100,000 years, or whatever it is. I actually don't know the doctrine or the philosophy. I'm actually not that interested in it. What I'm interested in is when a goddess energy like that comes to us and speaks to us, which she did. It happened to be synchronistically that one of the key temples where our retreat center was dedicated to Kali. We didn't know that before we went, but so it was. And we felt her come to us in the meditations in the studio, and she made it really clear how she was working with Gaia. One of the things I mentioned at the beginning was that what we've experienced is Gaia's reticence to unraveling from this old construct. Why? Because she's done so several times before, and it doesn't go very well for all of those life forms still bound into the old 3D, still invested, because it breaks the reality down. We are coming into a grand galactic convergence of cosmic cycles, of galaxy with the sun, with the Earth's pole shift, which is going to break everything down in a period of probably 2 decades, 2 or 3 decades at most. It's going to completely transform the 3D, breaking it all down. Gaia knows what that means because she's been through it. She has been reticent to shifting, and that's why so much of the suffering has sustained. That's what I would put to you. But now she's ready to go, because she realizes that to maintain this suffering, systemic suffering that we're living in, is not in the interest of the balance of sentient life here. And one of the things Kali has done, she's come to Gaia, she showed us that, because Kali has a very coherent energy. She's not afraid of moving because she can see the bigger picture, not the minutiae, not the microcosm, but she can see the macrocosm, the need to shift, no matter what the immediate suffering that might cause, apparent suffering in the physical. We need to come to a higher harmony, which honors and respects all life. That's what needs to happen now. Even if that causes, a cleansing and a lot of pain, apparently, on the surface in the meantime. My feeling on this is, yes, I can see what's coming. I mean, take a look at what's happening in Palestine. That is a reflection of what's coming in a bigger picture. And my feeling is, would I want the suffering, which is systemic, across the whole of the planet, would I want it to last a day longer than it has or does? Or would I like it to shift to a higher vibration and accept that there is going to be some pain to get there? That's my question. Well, I believe humanity is living in systemic pain right now. And I think that's being reflected to us. So it's a question of saying, right, well, where's the higher possibility? And can I transcend this density to move there? And that's what Kali is reflecting to Gaia. And it is being a progressive unraveling. And my observation of what's happening in the Middle East is an effect of that, is caused by the shift, the movement. And so that is what we can say is why we have this war on materiality. But there is another side to this, all right? The golden age emerges from the transmutation of the density. It's alchemy. It's taking base metal and turning it into metaphoric gold. And that's what's coming. And to transition to the second part of the presentation, I'd like to show you a 5-minute film, just that captures the sense, the energy, the feeling we had when we were up in the Himalayas recently. Because it feels like it's a good transition into what happens as we transform and come out the other side. So if you could turn the lights. We've had an amazing time out here in northern India, in the Himalayas, on pilgrimage, experiencing the energies of the Lemurian root races and the mysticism and Tibetan shamanism that ultimately led to many of the great philosophies that people practice today. We've journeyed to our heritage, to our roots.
5, 6, 7.
We've laughed, we've cried, we've unraveled karma.
Can you do that one more, flight? How's that feel to you?
We've experienced the sacred temples up on the ridges around us. We've had great Indian food. And we have set the template for how we reclaim the lost humanity, the original humanity, how we reclaim that and we travel forwards through this great shift. We've connected with Kali who's helped us see the importance of unraveling, breaking down the old materiality in the world and in our lives, and that we shouldn't grieve that. Or if we do grieve that, to let it go, to let it unravel within us, because something much more special is coming to the world as the old paradigm breaks down and peels off. We've experienced the new energies coming in of the new paradigm, the golden Tara, the 5D crystalline grid, all of it we've experienced on this tremendous adventure, this pilgrimage. I came here with a prayer. Show me. Show me what's possible. Show me where we can journey and travel to. And I have not been disappointed. I've been shown so much more than I could ever have dreamed possible. And I'm absolutely reveling with the Openhand team to bring more pilgrimages here in the future. So if you resonate, if you feel that heartfelt longing to return to your roots, your origins, and really discover what the blueprint is for the path going forward, then come and join us next time. Namaste. No, it's not quite right. This way.
Oh, you want to be part of
The dog. I knew the dog. I knew the dog was going to be on the photograph.
I can sit the dog. No. Been mystical.
Oh yes. Mystical, magical, phenomenal. Yes.
So, in 3, we're going to do a mystical pose. In 3, in 2, in 1, mystical. It's a very intriguing pose.
That's a funky unicorn.
Thank you, all the beautiful people, for this extra celebration of my life.
That's amazing.
Thank you so much. Take care, Chrissy.
All of you.
Take care.
You too.
Well, I wanted to share that just because it's a little snapshot of what we experienced and a sense of the fun we had and the energies we experienced. But maybe I could share a few pointers of insights to some of the key things we picked up during that time that I mentioned in the film. We had the most extraordinary experience with the root nations of Lemuria. What do I mean by that? Wow, okay, everyone will have heard of Lemuria, and it will mean different things to different people. I can share what it means to us, what it meant in the work. So what was Lemuria? Well, to me it represented the seeding of 5 root nations of original humanity. So the hominid species, the collectivized consciousness, was looking to individuate at its time, that time on its journey, to create individualized souls so that we could have individual characters. And that's happening to other species on the planet right now. I mean, dogs and cats, for example, that are in proximity to humanity, are developing their own personality and have been doing so for some time. Whereas they would have had a collectivized consciousness before that. So many millions of years ago, the collective soul of hominids was working to individuate, to take on individual soul and experience. So the collective soul was subdividing. That's my understanding of it. It then needed a vehicle so as to embody. The vehicle needed to change from what it was to enable this greater expansive communication to happen between beings. And so the higher dimensionals, they facilitated, supported that individuation through the resonance of energies through the field. I'm saying this not out of some kind of research. This is my direct experience in regression back to those times. Several experiences, several regressions during that transition, during that time, and experiencing being one of the Lemurians who came in, what it's like to be crammed into this kind of body when you've been expansively higher dimensional. What it feels like, not too comfortable, like cramming a genie into a bottle, something like that. And what I'm aware happened is that various star-being nations lent little fragments of DNA to these 5 root nations, which is why you've got the variations on the planet going right back, and why you have the First Nations that were suppressed because they contain this blueprint of divinity, which the shadow wanted to suppress and marginalize out. That's why we see all of the First Nations having been tragically broken, dissipated, like the Aboriginals, like the Native Americans, like the Tibetans, three of the root nations that were originally here. And in my knowing, and what we experienced in the Himalayas, was that each of the root nations had some DNA incorporated into the configuration of that particular root nation, so as to form a chalice to hold this higher dimensional energy, and also as a resonance so that they could be less influenced by intervention. It would help them emerge out. Because often these star soul frequencies are the antidote to intervention frequencies. When you bring the star soul frequency alive in you, it negates the intervention frequencies. In Tibet, we experience a lot of Andromedan energy, and it was communicated to us, it was made clear that that genetics, that energy was incorporated in the root nations in Tibet, in the Himalayas. And you can see it, I believe, in the mandalas. The mandalas incorporating sacred geometry. And sacred geometry is the way the Andromedans create reality. They weave the quantum field from the observation of sacred geometry. And I believe you see that in the mandalas. And the mandalas have a very special significance when speaking, for example, into the Merkaba. So we were getting visions of how a two-dimensional mandala suddenly takes multidimensional form through the geometry encoded in it. And you can see the Merkaba moving in relation to the mandala. Unbelievable experience. It instigated an impromptu meditation where I'm seeing effectively dancing lights emerging out of a 2D mandala. Phenomenal experience. Absolutely phenomenal. What did the Tibetan Buddhists do with that awareness? Well, it became indoctrinated. It became doctrine. It was written down. It wasn't originally. What I was made aware is that the Andromedan communication was meant to be metaphoric. It was never meant to be literal. Because the metaphoric representation through sacred geometry allows the scope for us to interpret in our way and bring that energy alive. But they committed it to doctrine. They wrote it down, basically. What did this do? It disconnected from the crown chakra, because the crown chakra is all about being in the unknown, allowing flow, allowing creation to emerge from the crown chakra. As soon as you get into the intellectual indoctrination of that experience, like any religion, the Christ was not a Christian, right? Like any religion, the Buddha was not a Buddhist. Like any religion, once it becomes indoctrinated, then you lose the free-flowing, natural, authentic expression of it. And this is what happened. And this is what was communicated to us. And so you have a plan was hatched. What had been realized, in my understanding, my knowing by the higher dimensionals, the ascended masters we can say, is that they realized the divine feminine of intuition had been extracted out of this free-flowing divinity because it had become very intellectualized. And so they felt that it would be beneficial to bring the female energy in to interpret it in a different way. Hence Blavatsky felt the pull, the movement, the intuition to go to Tibet. She was rejected many times, but she persisted, and ultimately, in our knowing, she was accepted into one of the key monasteries there. And from that, she took interpretations of the doctrine. She also connected in the ether to some of the ascended masters, like Dwal Kul, for example, and her work then became the Theosophical Society. in the late 1800s, as I understand it. But again, we connected directly with Blavatsky and Bailey in the ether, and they both lamented the fact that it had still become very theoretical, intellectual, as opposed to alchemical mysticism, which is what the original humans, Lemurians, had. And then, so the work from Blavatsky, Bailey then took it on in the 1930s, and from her work, which was more intuitive, it became the New Age movement. So you see things like the 5 initiations of consciousness on the road to enlightenment. You see the 7 rays of consciousness, for example, which is a fundamental mystical truth which invites us to see our authentic expression as a harmony, a soul ray harmonic of different frequencies of beingness. That's a fundamental truth which needs to come to the fore again now. I've spoken of this here many times before and will continue to do so. It had become indoctrinated. It now needs to be reclaimed as a way of re-establishing, attuning soul frequency, because this is what breaks down the Maya, the matrix, the density. And so that was their invitation, and it was in part fulfilled, but now needs to progress further. One of the great challenges of the New Age was it disconnected from reality and created this kind of false bubble. It disconnected from being earthed and grounded, and so created this bubble. That was one of the key limitations. Whereas earlier on, the Tibetan Buddhist work, to me, disconnected from the crown. And that's something we were shown out in the Himalayas. And so how do we work with it all now? Re-establish this mysticism that we once had in Lemurian times, where life is more a dancing flow than a rigid doctrine, a rigid system, a rigid intentionality. We need to reclaim that mysticism. And when we were out in the Himalayas, during a meditation, phenomenal out there in the mountains doing this, we're finding ourselves connecting with lots of beautiful energies coming up off the mountains. One was this incredible cloud, a golden cloud that appeared, golden amber cloud, that appeared over the studio afterwards. And it started to feel very much like this energy connecting into the third eye. And later on, I was out on the ground on a walk, and we found as a group this tremendous waterfall, turquoise pool. It looked and felt like energy coming off the Himalayas and creating this sense of the new paradigm. You could even see in the base of the pool what I would call the golden serpent, which was an animation, an expression of Kundalini when it comes up onto the 6th density. So up here, and if we come down to the human level, so up here. And so this energy came to us and animated that consciousness through the third eye on the 6th density. And it was like a dancing weave of light interrelating with the 5D crystalline grid. And what I'd like to do is show an animation of something like it someone developed that speaks directly into this dynamic. And I'd like to just show that. Can we turn the back lights off? Thank you. so you don't all so you don't get all mesmerized by the effects. I don't know what you took from that, but when I saw it, I thought, wow, this is incredible, because someone has just articulated what it feels like and what I see from an imagery point of view of the 5D crystalline grid and the 6D interrelating with it of golden light, which creates the sacred geometry, which weaves this new experience in the higher dimensions. So what it's actually saying is, if we take this now at a Gaia level, okay, if this is Gaia, and Gaia is unraveling the old consciousness, and that's going to happen as we get this grand galactic convergence, which breaks materiality down, then her consciousness is realigning with her authentic expression of self, her own soul, and ascending and creating this new weave of light, of a crystalline light-based experience based on sacred geometry that's oscillating and interweaving around what will be the old 3D shell. That breaks down, the consciousness emerges around what was the old planet, but cleansed, and you have that dancing weave taking the new form, or forming the new paradigm, the weave of the new paradigm, upon which we then create. This is what I saw happening, this is what I experienced happening, and the animation is a great metaphor for that. That's what I see coming. Now, most importantly, we don't wait for it to happen, because it's there now. And as the old reality breaks down, this is emerging through it. So it's like we're living in two worlds, not one. And where we attune to determines what we're going to experience. Notwithstanding the fact that if we are still plugged into the density, if we're still identified with it, then we still have to process it. We still have to work with it. But as we work with it, we're going to unleash more the feeling of that flow, more the feeling of self-determination and sovereignty, more the feeling of divine co-creativity, which manifests around you. Not by intention, it flows, animates, and creates. We need to follow it. We need to align with it. Notice the patterning, whether that's in sacred geometry, numerology, synchronicities. What is it saying? What is it inviting? And I step into reality in a different way. I'm looking out into the world, and it's no longer so literal. I don't take it so literally. I look for the invitation of how to express and actualize in it. Whatever it is, whether it's relationship, how I'm living, how I'm working, all of the minutiae of how I'm living. I'm watching it, and I'm feeling the patterning flow through it. And if I pick that up, if I'm picking this up, which I can do right now, I'm going to create from that place. I can create anything from that place. I can create resources from that place. I can create connections between people from that place. Open flows through the density from that place. I can do it now. We can do it now. And this is what the animation of the Golden Tara was reflecting and showing as an embodied experience. This was the power of it. This was the what we picked up from it. And that energy is right there for us now. And what I would like to do as another meditation is to convey a sense of that, of how we can work with it. Because, you know, it's all right for someone to stand here as the New Ages have done in the past and say, oh, this is fantastic, this is all, you know, amazing and available to us. But if we can't actually apply it in a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis, then it's worthless. So I just wanted to give a sense of it in this final meditation that I want to share with you. So just make yourself comfortable and bring yourself into the breath. Inhale up through the nose, expand, feel that sense of expansion, connection. And exhale down through the head, through the throat, chest and body, all the way to the base. And hold on the out-breath a few moments before you inhale again, up through the core of you as you inhale, up through the head expanding, and into the crown chakra, and hold the breath on the full inhale. Just feel the expansiveness. So you feel that expansive lightness. I can feel it amplifying in the room because of the work you're doing. You can feel that expansive lightness, but also breathing it down through you, right down to the base. So as you're breathing now, I'd like you to contemplate a situation in your life where you have unclarity about it. You're not sure which way to go with it. There might be some degree of attachment or trepidation or anxiety about the pathway forwards. You might be concerned about where resources are coming from as well. I'd like you to contemplate these things. See the imagery. What is the situation like? And if other people are involved in it, see them too. And now feel the effect of that. What does that feel like? What's happening in the heart, for example? And the back, I feel a sense of betrayal somewhere in the room. I feel a blockness around the third eye, a real contortion, like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole is what I'm feeling. I feel the sacrum is quite tight in one or two places. We need to be honest with ourselves about these triggers, because these are the gateways, the doorways to advancement and evolutionary growth. So in the same way as the earlier meditation, ask yourself, what is the attachment that is presenting in a situation? If the throat is tight, maybe there's an invitation to say something that there's concern about how that might go. For example, in the head, if it's tight, the not being able to be fully yourself, for example, or the sense of that. Now ask yourself, as you're feeling it, what are you attached to? What are you afraid of? Let me ask you the question, does it actually serve you to play it small? That feels like it wants to be asked out of the field. Does it actually serve you to play it small? And know that you are actually carrying this baggage around with you. Often we don't see it until it's called. We deal with the discomfort by placating it. Comfort eating, for example. Or distraction, for example. Entertainment, so as to avoid the discomfort. But that's just self-defeating, self-derailing. What is the attachment then? Ask yourself that. And then ask yourself the question, is it worth you carrying that around? Is it worth being defined by it? Is it worth being limited by it? And assuming you can say no, you are ready to set it down. Inside yourself, it's all consciousness. It's all created from consciousness. When you decide to set it down, it can change, and it can change in an instant. Feel yourself setting the baggage down. Why carry it? And as you set the baggage down, the weight diminishes. As you inhale, feel the expansion up through your being, especially up into the third eye. And as you inhale up into the third eye, feel the expansion through it. So let me ask you this now. How is the situation inviting you to be in your authenticity? How is it inviting you to be? Whether it's courageous and bold, whether it's creative, whether it's resourceful, whether it's alchemical, being prepared to sit in the unknown. Whether it's willful, for example, whether it's unconditionally loving and surrendered, but not accepting anything goes. That's different. Surrendered to the truth of the moment. Feel the sense of that. Now with that energy, and I can feel new energies activating in the room, with that energy, can you visualize it as? Maybe, for example, it's a color, a weave, sacred geometry, maybe it's something in nature, maybe it's a power animal or something like that. See it, feel it, because it's coming to you for a reason. And now ask yourself, how is that energy inviting you to be in that particular situation? How is it inviting you to be? How can you be different? See yourself in that new sense of beingness. Visualize yourself in it. It's okay now to visualize yourself because it's coming from authentic feeling. And maybe it comes to you what step to now take. The first step. It doesn't have to be the top of the mountain, just one step in that direction. What's the first step? You might see that, feel it happen. Just going to play a little piece of music and just allow the feeling of that to animate as I play the music.
I am the first and the second, and I belong to the four. I have always been by your side, from your first breath of life until your terminal breath of acceptance. I am the guardian of the twilight and the birth of your being, following the principles of sensuality and choice. Look into my mirror and you will find me all around, for I reflect your heart and all that is. I am a constant companion of divine light. I take away the pain and guide the path of destiny. Step into the true light and walk with me. You will travel no matter where you will venture. Your journey is true because your journey becomes a great experience of love, which you navigate from your heart.
Just feel and breathe. Exhale down and fully connect right down to your base. feeling then that higher dimensional connection, yet here and now. Yet here now anchored. And when you're ready, just gently, softly opening the eyes, yet staying with the energy that you're experiencing. In conclusion, we have an incredible opportunity stretching before us. Many have spoken of this in the past, but it has been distorted through doctrine or through practice which is disconnected from the reality we're living in. The transformation is the transmutation of the physical. That's why we're witnessing the breakdown, this war on materiality. That's why we're witnessing it. The new paradigm is there. It's around us. It's building, it's weaving, and it will create here and now. But we must orientate with it. Essentially, we must be clear on how we navigate from the soul in any given moment. First, it will be breaking down the density like we did in the meditation, and recognizing when we get triggered. And that it's an invitation to work with it in that moment, not to put it off, not to put it aside to a more convenient moment, let's say. Because each point of triggering, whatever it is, there is the immediate doorway into a greater possibility and expansion. And that's why we created it. That's why we created it. We must empower ourselves by taking ownership of what we create and not trying to dump it, but asking the question, why did I create it? Where was my attachment? Where was my investment, as we've just done? Can I let it go? Why am I carrying the baggage around of what I perceive the impact of the external will be if I dare to present as I really am? Maybe that'll trigger other people around me. So what? So what? It's time to be who we truly are and let the genie out of the bottle. We need to do that now. When we were in Himalayas and we did this beautiful movement through a portal, which we actually showed in the film, going through a little Tibetan flags portal, there was this bottle that was half buried, and I almost picked it up, but Tilly picked it up, and I knew it was meant for me afterwards. I should have taken it. It's the lesson, always take the gifts that come. And on the bottle it said, "Old Monk." And I'm often talking about taking the top off the bottle and letting the genie out. And I recognized a past life as a monk, and it was time to emerge from that. And so, see the metaphor. And it was full of sacred geometry. This glass bottle, a weave like what I showed, all around the bottle. Incredible reflection. See the metaphor. Let the navigation take you, and let that build the landscape that you then experience. So if we look at this as now not Gaia, but as a human being, representing a human, then the energy is cascading in through the crown, and it's starting to animate flow. And the flow is inviting something. What is it inviting? It's inviting authentic beingness through the third eye. It's inviting an animation of that. That is what the Golden Tara was reflecting to us in. She either wants me to see the one underneath, or maybe she does. She's certainly drawing her attention. So this is the 6D of authentic being, but then we get down into the throat chakra, connecting into the 5D crystalline grid, which is another aspect of the new paradigm. It's creating now. But the point is, as the energy cascades down, if it fragments into attachment, I'm afraid of expressing this way. I'm afraid that if I'm authentic and I express my truth, it's going to trigger or impact somebody else. Well, the risk is that I'm fragmenting back into the old identity. Or I'm afraid of taking that step, stepping out of a job that doesn't serve me or a situation that doesn't serve me. I risk stepping into the old identity. And if I do, that's okay as long as I acknowledge it. Say, look, yeah, okay, this has happened. I've gone back into the old patterns, the old cycles. Does it serve me to stay there? And assuming you catch yourself and say no, then you've got to get into it, express it, animate it, and ask, what am I attached to? What can't I let go of? Is it worth me carrying the baggage? Because all I do is recreate the same situations, the same circumstances. Better put it down and then let authentic being emerge and see how that wants to create. I remember somebody once constantly projecting at me because they thought I'd been unjust and unfair. I felt like I'd been in the truth. This was a close relationship. And constantly projecting at me, right? And I would go to defend myself each time because I felt this was unfair and unjust. And I'm walking past my bookshelves. I'm asking, show me how I deal with this situation. And this book falls out of the bookshelves in front of me. And it's a book called The Way of the Warrior. And it says in the middle, give your enemy, okay, the word itself wasn't appropriate to the situation, but give your enemy nothing to oppose and the attack will dissolve all by itself. And I'm thinking, gosh, man, that's a bolt from the blue. So later that day, I'm with this person again, and sure enough, this projection, judgment, animosity coming my way, and I can feel this energy rising to want to defend myself, and suddenly I catch the quote from the book, give your enemy nothing to oppose and the attack will dissolve by itself. Wow. And it catches me long enough not to go into that, that tit for tat kind of, well, it wasn't really tit for tat, but it was a kind of attempt to protect myself or justify myself. I caught it. And I'm standing there, and this projection is coming, keeps coming, and I'm not reacting. Because suddenly I've touched this state of, well, it became purely blissful as this person was attacking me. Blissful it became. But then something extraordinary happened. My belly started to rumble. And I recognized it as humor. And I started to giggle. And then laugh. What do you think happened? What do you think happened?
Brave, huh?
Brave. Well, you might think this would happen, but it didn't. This happened. The attack stopped. Why? Because this person could now see how they were being in that situation. They could see how they were being, and they caught themselves in it. Now, what am I saying here? I'm not saying you should laugh at someone every time they attack you. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that when we open space and soften any reactivity, authentic being comes through. You don't know, you can't predict the effect it's going to have on the situation. But I can guarantee it will create miracles and magic. I don't know I can't advise anyone how they should behave in that situation, because it'll be different to each dynamic. But what I can say is if you are authentic in it, and you open the space for authentic expression to come through, you're going to transform the situation into a new alignment, a new harmony, and a new positivity. And that is the key that I would like to conclude upon and leave us with. That to me is the 11-11 navigation. You're coming into alignment with the galaxy, the solar system, the earth. It's activating the soul, and it's inviting you to come alive in a new authenticity. And we do it in every single moment. And when we do that, when we open through the tightness and the density, we unleash soul, it creates in a new authentic way. And you're coming into alignment with this new reality. And that's how these energies that we connected with in the Himalayas were speaking to us. And that's what I felt to share with you tonight. And I'm happy to take questions on that. But if you resonated with anything that I've said, or you think this approach might be of value, do consider coming and getting involved with the work, because this is the kind of thing we're doing now through all of the events, retreats, workshops, seminars that we do. So if you've resonated, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for connecting into, because I could feel your energies during the meditations. And if you've resonated, then do come and get involved. And I will happily take any questions that people have and want to inquire with me. Feel free.
When we've moved through whatever it is we're moving through, and we're in 5D, it's commonplace for us. What would be the beingness of that? Where, as beings, what would be that beingness, if that makes sense? From the inside out, like, who are we there?
Well, the way I interpret the question as it comes through me is more, what is my orientation now? So, in this density, the orientation is, what do I do now? How do I fix this situation? How do I solve that? How do I make this happen? How do I fulfill that? Whereas in this place, it's more, who do I feel to be now as a soulful, embodied experience? rather than an identity that approaches the situation in a particular way, more an openness that allows authentic being to come through, that is self-witnessing and self-reflecting upon that. And from that beingness, recognizes reality creates in a harmony with life around it, and the actualization experience of that. To me, that's 5D, 6D, 7D. So I'm part of a landscape. How is the landscape inviting me to be? I see other creatures, other beings. How do I feel to interact with them as an authentic way of being and creating? That's how I interpret the question. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that's good.
Okay. Anybody else want? Yeah, please.
Mine isn't a question.
Okay.
I just wanted to speak to how heroic it is to. I mean, when you're out there in the matrix and you're working 9 to 5 and you're addicted to coffee and you barely have time to, all you can do is meditate for like 10 minutes a day. The invitation to step up, set down baggage, and in doing so set down our ego and say, look, I don't know what I'm doing, let me be humble, let me put my automatic reaction aside. Even just having the intention to put ego and reaction aside, I just want to speak to how heroic that is. And
I agree with you.
yeah, what we're being called to, like, we're conditioned. The world doesn't want us to be
It doesn't.
humble.
You're right.
So it's a
Nor
yeah.
in your power.
Shit.
It doesn't want you to be in your power either. It's afraid of you being in your power. Now let me just speak to one thing that you said there, because I have emerged from the matrix too. Let me speak to one thing. There's often the perception that I can only, I meditate and then I can only fit that in a certain period of time and then I go and do my work. Let me speak to that, because that's an illusion. Okay? It's a real illusion, and it's difficult, it's challenging, and requires a lot of courage to open through it, but it's still an illusion. Because what is meditation? Let me ask that question. What is meditation? Meditation, I put to you, is when I'm witnessing myself. When I'm witnessing myself. And when I'm witnessing myself, I start to recognize the repetitive behaviors and reactivity, and then I get the choice as to what I do with it. So let's say I'm sitting at my desk, and someone says something, colleague, boss, or whatever, gets me wound up. Or I contract in the shower, right? If I'm not in a place where I'm actually self-reflecting, self-witnessing that, I don't see that I'm actually creating that situation. I think it's being done to me. I become the victim of it because I'm in constant reactivity to it. But I could, for example, breathe and take a few moments just breathing. And I catch myself when that's happening. Now maybe I come forth with a different energy. For example, let's say, I'm afraid of speaking my truth because I'm afraid of losing my job. Let's say it's better for me to work part-time, but I'm afraid to challenge because I think I might lose it all. What if I just sit in my vibration, in my truth, open out, and risk speaking my truth? I can show you people in this organization, like sitting in the back, who've done that. And then the boss has turned around and said, you know what, I don't want to lose you. I recognize the truth that you're speaking. I honor it. Okay, maybe not quite in those words, right? And let's talk about how we can honor your situation. And that's happened. That's happened on, the people I've worked with many occasions. But it's easy to sit in that and think, shit, I can't say anything because I don't want to lose my job. Or I'm caught up in social media, or I'm caught up on the web, or whatever. I don't get the chance I don't apparently get the chance just to stop and relax and soften and open and see what then wants to come. And this, the system, the shadow, has gone into overdrive, wrapping people in to this old system purposefully. It doesn't want you. It doesn't want us in our power because it's afraid. Once you take power, it can't control you. At the end of the day, it's all gonna go.
Yeah.
Where do I orientate myself? Where's the point of it all? Because the matrix won't be here in years few. But something else will. And that's the invitation. But yes, it takes a lot of courage and commitment. I acknowledge that. It's not a light-hearted thing. But when you recognize that pathway always led to the same outcome and never satisfied, maybe it's time to go down this one. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I'm just thinking, the 5D consciousness, that there are 8 billion souls, I feel that billions won't be around in the next 10, 20 years. Do you feel that could be possibly true?
Absolutely, yes I do.
Yeah.
I would say right now, and as unpalatable as it may sound to compassionate people, I would say only a relatively small wave of people are ready for the shift of consciousness that is required. And the majority at this time will be recycled, if you like, reincarnated through other realities. I think that's likely to come. That's what's happening, is there's a divergence going on. Yeah. And I think, as hard as that is, you'll be in families. This is a challenge, and I've done a lot of workshops where people are in families where, most of the family isn't going with the shift, and one person in the family is, and the projection that comes your way, and the sense of, wow, empathy and compassion and care. But at the end of the day, you can't help them by getting in the pit with them. The only way to help them is stand on the edge, embody the energy, and if they're ready to come with it, they'll come. But getting in the pit isn't going to solve anybody's problem. I put it to you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here. I felt your energy. I felt it in the space. We were animating some really beautiful energies there. So hopefully, ideally, see how that feeds into your life going forward and how it might precipitate a change and a transformation. Thank you so much for coming. I really value, treasure. Thank you very much.